Shawn Wayans just confirmed what we feared about Marlon and Wayans Bros. In the world of Hollywood, where fame often feels like a fast-paced, high-stakes game, Shawn Wayans made a choice that shocked everyone. He disappeared. Not just from the spotlight, but from everything that made the Wayans family a household name. The announcement that Shawn would no longer work with his brother Marlon was something fans feared but could never have fully anticipated. It was more than just a family rift. It was a statement. What made Shawn pull away from it all? What did his quiet exit reveal about the ugly underbelly of the entertainment industry and the costs of chasing fame? Shawn, known for his wit, charm, and iconic roles in hit films like Scary Movie and White Chicks, became part of an industry built on noise, scandal, and spectacle. But behind all that, there was something much darker brewing. Betrayal, power struggles, and a family caught in the web of Hollywood's unspoken rules. As Marlon skyrocketed to solo fame and their brother Keenen led the way with his own success, Shawn, once at the center of it all, quietly walked away. In a town addicted to drama where every move is scrutinized and every word can lead to headlines, Shawn's silence spoke louder than anything. It was a choice to preserve his peace, to reclaim his dignity in a world where that was slipping away. While his family stayed in the public eye, embroiled in controversies, feuds, and scandals, Shawn chose to fade into the background. This wasn't just a retreat from fame, it was a quiet rebellion against everything Hollywood expected of him. And for those who were paying attention, it was the most profound message of all. Peace is worth more than the noise. This isn't just a story of family feuds. It's a story of what happens when someone realizes the price of fame is too high and chooses to walk away from it all. It's the silence that speaks volumes. Shawn Wayans didn't just exit the scene. He showed us the true cost of legacy power and the price of peace in a world that demands everything in return for a moment of fame. Shawn Wayans, the ninth of 10 children, was born into a world that demanded both resilience and creativity. Raised in the bustling, high-pressure environment of the Fulton Houses, a public housing project in Manhattan, Shawn's early years were shaped by the constant buzz of New York City, an urban backdrop that contrasted sharply with the idyllic image of Hollywood fame. For the Wayans family, creativity wasn't just a pastime, it was a survival tool. The Wayans family was large, loud, and full of raw talent, with each sibling carving out their own path. But amidst all the commotion, Shawn was often the quiet observer, not the eldest like Keenen, nor the youngest like Marlon. Instead, he was caught in the middle, having to navigate not only family dynamics, but the pressures of a world that demanded constant visibility. Growing up in the 1970s and 1980s, Shawn's environment was a far cry from the glamorous world of Hollywood red carpets. The Wayans' public housing life was a mixture of dreams and struggles. With so many siblings, the family's apartment was often overflowing with personalities, ambitions, and a fierce desire to make it out of their circumstances. At home, Shawn was constantly surrounded by a whirlwind of creative energy, and in many ways that raw energy would fuel his own journey into entertainment. Shawn's entry into the entertainment world came at a remarkably young age. In 1988, at just 17 years old, he landed his first film role in the comedy I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. Directed by his older brother Keenen Ivory Wayans, the film was a parody of blaxploitation films from the 1970s, and it became a launchpad not only for Keenen's burgeoning career but for Shawn's as well. The film's production set the tone for Shawn's career, a blend of comedy, creativity, and collaboration within his own family. In a world where fame often feels like an accident or a stroke of luck, Shawn's entrance into the industry was no fluke. It was a result of hard work, a close-knit family dynamic, and a shared vision of redefining comedy. However, Shawn's path to success wasn't always straightforward. Like many young men trying to find their footing in a turbulent world, his teenage years were a time of confusion and self-discovery. Shawn found himself struggling to balance his ambitions with the reality of growing up in a housing project. The lure of a fast-paced life filled with distractions and challenges threatened to derail his journey. He was at a crossroads: stay in school or take the plunge into the unpredictable world of show business. For a time, it seemed like the latter would win. Yet it was his older brother Keenan who would be the one to anchor him in the most critical moment of his young life. In a conversation that Shawn recalled years later during a 2012 podcast, Keenan offered him a piece of advice that would stick with him forever. "If you don't finish high school, you won't get anywhere." Keenan's words were a wake-up call. At that moment, Shawn knew he had to change course, and his decision to finish school marked the beginning of a renewed commitment to his future. This guidance from his brother proved pivotal not just for Shawn's education, but for his long-term success. With a high school diploma in hand, Shawn would begin his journey into the world of comedy with a new sense of direction and purpose. Shawn's first major break in the comedy world came in 1990 when he joined the cast of In Living Color, the groundbreaking sketch comedy series created by his older brother Keenan. It was on In Living Color that Shawn began to truly shine. Initially hired as a production assistant, he quickly made his mark behind the scenes. His work ethic and natural talent didn't go unnoticed, and before long he transitioned to a more visible role as an in-house DJ, taking on the stage name SW1. His ability to blend comedy and music became one of the show's most memorable features. As In Living Color gained momentum, so did Shawn's career. He not only performed sketches and helped write content for the show, but his presence also added a unique dynamic to the ensemble cast. The show was revolutionary, offering social commentary on everything from politics to race to pop culture, and it allowed Shawn to hone his comedic chops in ways he hadn't imagined. But his rise was not without its obstacles. Comedy, especially the type of bold and daring humor that the Wayans family was known for, was not always welcomed by mainstream Hollywood. Studios were reluctant to embrace their style of humor, which pushed boundaries and often bordered on the offensive. Despite these early setbacks, the Wayans brothers continued to forge their own path, and In Living Color became a cultural institution, setting the stage for Shawn's further success. In the years that followed, Shawn continued to work with his brothers, particularly in film. The film Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood was a milestone in Shawn's career. Released in 1996, the film was a satirical take on the popular black coming-of-age movies of the 1990s, mocking their familiar tropes and themes. Written and co-produced by Shawn and his brother Marlon, it was another example of the brothers' commitment to pushing the boundaries of comedy. Though it was a struggle to find a studio willing to take a chance on their unconventional humor, Don't Be a Menace became a cult classic, further solidifying Shawn's reputation as a comedic force. Despite the growing success, it was clear that Shawn's career was much more than just a collection of comedic films. He had become a multifaceted talent, not just an actor, but also a writer and producer. As the 1990s turned into the 2000s, Shawn, along with his brother Marlon, became involved in the Scary Movie franchise. Scary Movie was a satirical take on the horror genre, and it became a cultural phenomenon. The film's success, both at the box office and with audiences, demonstrated the Wayans brothers' ability to dominate the comedy scene. Shawn, however, didn't just rely on his comedic legacy. He sought new avenues to showcase his versatility, venturing into animation and drama. In 2000, he took on a role in the animated series Happily Ever After Fairy Tales for Every Child, in which he provided the voice for one of the characters. This marked another facet of his career, where Shawn showed his ability to engage audiences beyond traditional sitcoms and movies. His involvement in this project reflected his willingness to expand his repertoire and take risks in the roles he pursued. Another significant role came when Shawn ventured into the action-thriller genre with the film New Blood. While his career had primarily been built on comedic roles, Shawn showed that he could excel in high-intensity and physically demanding roles as well. His ability to transition from comedy to action was a testament to his growth as an actor, proving that he was much more than just the comedian who had once starred in Living Color and Don't Be a Menace. But it was his return to comedy that truly solidified his place in Hollywood. In the early 2000s, alongside Marlon and their brother Keenan Shawn co-created another film that would become a comedy classic, White Chicks. The film, though polarizing at first, went on to become a cult favorite, earning more than $113 million worldwide, despite its critical reception. While White Chicks received its share of mixed reviews, the success of the film further demonstrated Shawn's ability to create something out of the box to make people laugh and to continue pushing boundaries in a world that often didn't understand his brand of humor. As the years passed, Shawn's career continued to evolve. However, even as he gained success, the industry he once helped build would prove to be an increasingly difficult place to thrive in. As his brothers continued to dominate Hollywood with their own projects, Shawn became more introspective, questioning what success truly meant. He began to pull away from the chaos of the entertainment industry, realizing that while others chased fame, he had achieved something far more valuable: peace. Shawn Wayans' journey wasn't a straight path. From a young man growing up in public housing to becoming one of the most influential figures in comedy, his career was filled with highs and lows, struggles and triumphs. But through it all, he never lost sight of what mattered most: his family, his vision, and his peace. And perhaps that is the greatest achievement of all. Shawn Wayans' rise to fame was not a story of overnight success. It was a carefully crafted journey shaped by both his family's legacy and his own determination. Though he was the quiet sibling in the larger-than-life Wayans family, it didn't take long for the world to realize that Shawn had something special to offer. His path was defined by a series of bold decisions, collaborations, and an unshakable commitment to creating a new space for himself within the world of entertainment. As a young boy in the rough-and-tumble environment of the Fulton houses, Shawn was always keenly aware of the struggles that came with growing up in public housing. The vibrant energy of New York City, however, became the backdrop for his creativity, and it was here that his dreams of stardom began to take root. Unlike many of his siblings who had already carved out their roles in the entertainment industry, Shawn was the underdog, often overshadowed by his older brothers Keenan and Damon, whose careers were already well established in Hollywood. Yet it was this very position that fueled Shawn's ambition and desire to prove himself on his own terms. At the age of 17, Shawn made his first appearance on screen in the 1988 comedy I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, which was directed by his older brother Keenan. This was the moment that the world was introduced to the Wayans' unique brand of humor. The film, a parody of 1970s blaxploitation movies, was as much an introduction to the Wayans family's comedic style as it was a launching pad for Shawn's career. Although his role was relatively minor, it was enough to spark interest in the young comedian's potential. The movie was successful in its own right, but it also laid the groundwork for a broader recognition of the Wayans' collective creative genius. It was the first step in a long, complicated journey that would see Shawn rise from the periphery of Hollywood to a central figure in the world of comedy. While many would have been content with simply taking on small roles, Shawn had bigger ambitions. He wanted more. Despite the occasional frustration of being viewed as the younger sibling of a family filled with successful names, Shawn carved his own path, relying on both his comedic instincts and the unyielding support of his family. One of his most important stepping stones came when he joined the cast of In Living Color in 1990. Created by Keenan Ivory Wayans. In Living Color was a groundbreaking sketch comedy show that changed the landscape of television. It broke new ground with its diverse cast and edgy content, touching on social issues in ways that mainstream shows had never dared. Initially, working behind the scenes as a production assistant, Shawn's role quickly expanded. His natural ability to engage audiences, combined with his deep understanding of comedic timing, helped him transition from behind the scenes to in front of the camera. One of his early standout moments on the show was as the DJ SW1, where his charisma and unique comedic style began to shine. Shawn's presence on In Living Color was vital, not just because of his talent, but because it allowed him to fully immerse himself in the creative process. Working alongside his family, he played a significant role in writing sketches, adding a personal touch to the show's already dynamic blend of comedy and social commentary. Shawn's comedic style was a natural extension of his upbringing, a mix of irreverence, wit, and an underlying sense of warmth. While his older brothers were known for their bold, often in-your-face humor, Shawn's approach was more subtle, relying on timing and an understanding of the complexities of human behavior. This unique style began to stand out on In Living Color, and it wasn't long before he was recognized as one of the show's core comedic voices. His work on In Living Color helped to establish him as a rising star in the entertainment industry, but his ambitions went far beyond just being a member of an ensemble cast. Shawn's next major step in his rise to fame came with the creation of the Wayans Brothers sitcom, which premiered in 1995. It was a defining moment in Shawn's career, as it was the first time he would take center stage as both an actor and a producer. The show, which he co-created with Marlon, was a hit. It revolved around two brothers running a newsstand in New York City, a simple premise that allowed for plenty of comedic moments. The chemistry between Shawn and Marlon was undeniable, and their unique dynamic, with Shawn playing the more grounded, sensible brother to Marlon's wild, energetic character, became a defining feature of the show. Although the show was primarily a comedy, it also provided Shawn with an opportunity to showcase his range as an actor. Over the course of the series, he demonstrated a talent for balancing humor with sincerity, using his character to explore deeper themes of family responsibility and personal growth. The show also became a cultural touchstone, especially for fans of black sitcoms in the 90s. Despite its success, the behind-the-scenes journey was not without its challenges. As with many shows, the early days were marked by creative differences, particularly when it came to the vision for the show. But as with all the challenges Shawn faced in his career, he persevered, pushing through the struggles to create something that felt authentic to him. The Wayans Bros would run for 4 seasons, earning Shawn widespread recognition for his comedic timing and his ability to create a lovable character. He also won a Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Award nomination for his role on the show. However, like many successful sitcoms, the Wayans Bros eventually came to an end, leading Shawn to reevaluate his career trajectory. It was a bittersweet moment for him, as the show had provided both professional satisfaction and a deep sense of personal pride. The end of the series didn't just mark the conclusion of a significant chapter in Shawn's career, it also signaled a shift in his approach to the industry. Though he had proven himself as a versatile comedian, Shawn felt a desire to step outside the world of television and explore other genres. His next major venture was into film, where he starred alongside his brother Marlon in the 2000 comedy Scary Movie, directed by Keenan Ivory Wayans. Scary Movie was a satire of popular horror films, and it became a massive success. The film was a turning point for Shawn, cementing his status as a leading figure in Hollywood. It was more than just a comedy. It was a cultural phenomenon that redefined the parody genre. As the film's success surged, so did Shawn's visibility. Scary Movie not only brought him critical acclaim, but also positioned him as a top-tier comedic talent in the industry. The success of Scary Movie opened doors for Shawn, leading to a string of film roles in the years that followed. He continued to explore different avenues within comedy, starring in films like White Chicks 2004 and Little Man 2006, which became cult classics in their own right. Although these films received mixed reviews, they made substantial profits and established the Wayans brothers as influential figures in Hollywood. As the 2000s progressed, Shawn's career continued to evolve. His decision to step away from Scary Movie after the second film in the franchise marked a critical turning point. While the franchise continued to thrive, Shawn and Marlon wanted to pursue projects that allowed them to maintain creative control and avoid being pigeonholed into a single genre. This led to the creation of films like White Chicks and Little Man, which, despite their divisive reception, showcased their ability to make bold, risk-taking choices in Hollywood. By this point, Shawn's fame had grown exponentially, but with that fame came new challenges. The pressure to conform to Hollywood's expectations of what he should be as a comedic actor began to weigh heavily on him. The industry that had once welcomed him with open arms now seemed to demand more than just his talent. It wanted his allegiance, his silence, and his participation in the culture of excess that so often defined Hollywood. In the face of this, Shawn's desire for creative freedom and peace would begin to outweigh the allure of fame and recognition. Thus, the rise of Shawn Wayans was not just a tale of success, it was a tale of evolution, self-discovery, and the pursuit of authenticity in a world that often values the opposite. Through his hard work, talent, and willingness to take risks, Shawn had established himself as one of the most influential comedic figures of his generation. But it was his decision to leave behind the noise of Hollywood that would ultimately define his true legacy. Behind Shawn Wayans' public success, a darker, more complex reality began to emerge, one that many fans didn't see coming. While his career flourished in the spotlight, the pressures and hidden struggles of the entertainment industry began to take their toll. Shawn's quiet exit from the world of high-profile comedy and his decision to step back from Hollywood wasn't merely a personal preference. It was a response to the toxic undercurrents of fame, the exploitation within his own family, and a culture that demanded more than just his talent. The dark side of Shawn's life was not just about facing industry battles. It was about the painful realization that in order to preserve his sanity, he would have to walk away from the very thing that had brought him success. The entertainment world that had once welcomed him with open arms began to feel like a suffocating machine, one that sought to manipulate and exploit him. Shawn's early career was built on the foundation of family collaboration with his siblings, especially Keenan and Marlon being instrumental in his rise. However, as their careers took off, Shawn found himself at the center of a growing tension within the family. What began as a united front for the Wayans clan gradually turned into a fractured, often competitive dynamic. With each sibling gaining fame and recognition, the internal family competition grew, leaving Shawn to wonder if he was more of a pawn in the family's game than a fully realized individual with control over his own destiny. The most painful of these family tensions came with the overwhelming success of Marlon. Shawn had long supported his younger brother, but Marlon's rise to stardom triggered a deep rift between the two. As Marlon's career soared, particularly with films like Scary Movie, Shawn found himself increasingly sidelined. The brothers' relationship, once based on mutual respect and collaboration, started to crumble under the weight of competition and egos. Marlon's fame began to eclipse Shawn's, and the younger sibling seemed to be more in tune with Hollywood's demands, embracing the hustle, the flashy parties, and the need to stay constantly visible. But for Shawn, this lifestyle felt hollow. It wasn't just about the work anymore. It was about appeasing the public's insatiable appetite for fame and spectacle. Shawn, who had always been the more introspective of the two, couldn't reconcile his own values with the image that Hollywood wanted him to project. Shawn's decision to step away from the limelight was in part a response to this toxic pressure. It wasn't just about avoiding the fame machine, but about protecting his own mental and emotional health. As Marlon embraced his star power, pushing forward in his career with appearances in major blockbuster films and controversial moments, Shawn grew more disillusioned with the very industry that had once offered him a path to success. He began to quietly remove himself from Hollywood's toxic cycle, turning down projects and taking on smaller, less visible roles. This was his way of resisting, not through protest but through silence. It became clear that in order to protect his sense of self, he would have to leave behind the very thing that had brought him recognition. However, the silence was not without its consequences. As he withdrew from the public eye, Shawn faced accusations of being washed up or irrelevant. The very culture that had once celebrated his success now cast him aside as someone who had faded into obscurity. But for Shawn, this was a choice. A way of reclaiming his peace in an industry that thrives on chaos. The hidden truth behind his decision to step away from the limelight was not just about avoiding public scrutiny. It was about choosing to protect his own identity, a luxury few in Hollywood could afford. Yet this withdrawal also came with emotional cost. Shawn had spent years building a career in comedy, pouring his heart into shows like In Living Color, The Wayans Bros, and films like Scary Movie. But as his brothers' careers soared, Shawn found himself feeling increasingly isolated. His quiet departure from the industry wasn't just a break from fame, it was a statement about his disillusionment with the industry itself and the personal cost of fame that so many actors are unwilling to acknowledge. Shawn's decision to retreat was a sobering reminder that in Hollywood, even the brightest stars are not immune to the dark side of fame. The pressure to conform to the system, the strain of competing within a family of creative giants, and the constant scrutiny of the public took a toll on him. In interviews, Shawn began to open up, but only in subtle ways. His decision not to speak publicly about the family tensions, the Hollywood betrayals, and the struggles he faced was a form of resistance. Instead of using his platform to air grievances or fuel scandals, he chose silence, a choice that many perceived as avoidance, but was in fact a way of protecting the parts of himself that mattered most. His silence was a powerful form of self-preservation, a refusal to engage with the superficiality of Hollywood that demanded both allegiance and performance. The hidden truth about Shawn Wayans' exit from the public stage was more than just a personal retreat. It was an act of rebellion against a system that seeks to consume artists for its own gain. In a world that often values noise over substance, Shawn chose peace. He stepped back from the spotlight not because he couldn't handle fame, but because he refused to let it define him. He quietly walked away from a world that thrives on drama and controversy, leaving behind a legacy that is defined not by his name in headlines, but by his ability to prioritize his own well-being over the expectations of the industry. Shawn's absence from Hollywood is one of the most powerful and telling choices an artist can make. It's a reminder that even in an industry that thrives on visibility, there is profound strength in choosing to remain silent, choosing peace over noise. And while his name may not grace the marquee of every blockbuster, Shawn Wayans' quiet resistance continues to speak volumes about the personal cost of fame and the importance of protecting one's sense of self in a world that demands everything in return for success. Shawn Wayans' story is one of quiet strength and profound resilience. In an industry that devours those who crave the spotlight, Shawn chose to fade away not in bitterness, but in a deliberate act of self-preservation. As his siblings embraced the whirlwind of fame, controversy, and all the trappings of success, Shawn stepped back, refusing to be consumed by it. His decision wasn't just about leaving Hollywood. It was about reclaiming his peace and prioritizing his well-being over the allure of fame that so many in his industry fall victim to. For most, walking away from the spotlight would be seen as a failure. But for Shawn, it was a declaration of victory. In a world that demands performers constantly churn out content and remain in the public eye to be relevant, Shawn's silence spoke volumes. He wasn't just another celebrity lost to the pressures of Hollywood. He was someone who had the courage to walk away from it all, to say no to a system that would have drained him dry and instead live life on his own terms. This quiet rebellion is perhaps the most profound part of his legacy. While many chased the fleeting highs of Hollywood fame, Shawn found something far more valuable: peace. As Hollywood continued its relentless pursuit of scandal, shock value, and viral moments, Shawn chose the one thing that doesn't trend: dignity. It wasn't the noise of the industry that defined him. It was his ability to step back and find fulfillment in simplicity, away from the cameras and the constant rush of Hollywood. While his siblings thrived in the limelight, Shawn stood as a testament to the power of choosing silence when everything else demanded attention. For those of us watching from the outside, Shawn's story is a powerful reminder that there's more to success than just fame. It's about having the strength to define your own path, regardless of what others expect from you. It's about finding your peace, your purpose, and your true self, even when the world around you demands that you conform. So what can we learn from Shawn Wayans' journey? That true success isn't defined by how many headlines you make or how many red carpets you walk. It's about choosing your own story, even if that means stepping away from the noise. The real power lies in knowing when to stay silent. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence, where we continue to uncover the untold stories of those who've shaped entertainment and culture. Stay tuned for more.